Hello, everyone. I'm Brent. I'm one of the librarians downstairs here in the Widener Law Commonwealth Library. And today I'm going to talk, hopefully quickly, about conducting legislative history research, mainly at the federal level for federal laws. But I'm also going to touch briefly on Pennsylvania, since we do live in Pennsylvania. You might need to conduct a Pennsylvania legislative history search as well. If you have any questions whatsoever, make sure you have that email address shown there on the screen, and I will try to help you out however I can. So what is legislative history? I don't know if you've had the privilege of listening to Schoolhouse Rock, I'm Just a Bill. When I was a child in the 70s, this was sort of a common.
Imagine the world's most fun robot living in your house. It can learn everything you like to do, and it can.
Anyway, it wants to play the commercial rather than the video, but you get the drift. I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill, and it tracked in a elementary school format how a bill goes from a concept in a senator or a congressman's office to being debated, passed, and then signed by the president to become law. So all of those steps from introduction to signage, all of the documents, that's what the legislative history is on this slide here. Legislative history is going to refer to the progress of bill through the legislative process and all of the documents and information and whatever else is attached to that legislation. Anything you can find is legislative history of the law you're researching. Types of legislation, there's a variety of different types of laws, just so you're aware that you'll look to know what you're dealing with. House and Senate bills are your normal routine laws. House or Senate joint resolutions have the effect of laws, but slightly different procedure to get them passed. Typically, constitutional amendments might start as a House or Senate joint resolution. And then down below, concurrent resolutions and simple resolutions. Resolutions don't have the power, impact, effect of law. Something slightly more just ceremonial in nature, I suppose. Here's the legislative process in a one screen schematic there. A bill's introduced either in the House or the Senate. It's going to be assigned to a committee. The committee will vote on it. If it passes, it'll go to the full House for a vote. And then once it clears the House of Representatives, then it'll go to the Senate and they'll do the same thing. And then it'll eventually be signed into law by the president. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 major components of a legislative history. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that all laws are going to have all of those things there, or even some of those things, but this list here is what you're looking or hoping to find. Information that you're wanting to find, documents that you're wanting to find. Why a bill was or was not passed into law. Try to glean the intent of the legislation from the documents. The different amendments as it passed from committee to conference committee. Finding the debates of the bill. Locating other documents associated with the bill. Is there a presidential signing statement when the president signed it into law. All of these different things are potentially legislative history. Just so you're aware, pattern of statutory publications, so you know the different types of things you're looking at when you're doing research. Statutory publication usually follows at the federal level in this variety, as you see on the slide, and in the state, statutory publication will be roughly akin to this. It'll start as a bill. Once the bill is signed by the president, it becomes law. They'll publish it as a slip law and give it a public law number. Once the legislative session is over, all of the public laws can be combined in numerical order, in the order that they were passed, and that will become the session laws in one large 1 or 2 or 3 volumes. So those session laws, those are your statutes at large. And then once the law is a session law, then they'll start the process of codifying the law into the United States Code. You need to codify it roughly by subject matter so that there's a organized way that you can locate and research what you're looking for on a statutory basis. Without the codification step, organizing the laws into subject matter and keyword type concepts, it would be awfully difficult to find what you're looking for and to do statutory research. And then finally, immediately after the codification process, they'll start assigning annotations to the United States Code annotations. Annotations are what help you understand the law. So at the end of each section of the United States Code annotated, you'll see annotations. Annotations can be law review articles, American law reports, study aids, desk reference type things that help you understand and interpret the statute you're looking at. So that's the annotation process. That's the final process. To locate legislative history documents, you'll need to find at least one of these 3 things here: bill number, the public law number, statute at large citation, or the United States Code citation would suffice as well, because you can pull those numbers, those citations from the statute itself. So here's a screenshot of Westlaw, I think, Title 42, Section 7407, the United States Code, dealing somehow with air quality regulations. And at the end of the statutory language is the credit section. So here are all the different laws that have somehow impacted Section 7407. It was introduced originally in 1955. Here's the public law number of the 1955 bill. And then it's been amended 1, 2, 3, several times. The most recent amendment to Section 7407 is public law number 108-199. And here's the statute at large citation, volume 104, stat 2399, public law site 108-199. That's the 108th Congress, the 199th piece of legislation passed. Here's a screenshot of a statutes at large page. You get quite a bit of information in the statute at large. The citation, so you can find it on Lexis or on the shelf of the library. The public law citation, the 14th law passed in the 112th Congress. They give you the Senate bill numbers. So Senate Bill 990 became Public Law 112, 114. It was passed on May 26, 2011. And there'll be even maybe some annotations to legislative history in the congressional record. So Senate Bill 990 was discussed on the House or Senate floor on these 4 dates. So you could find volume 157 of the Congressional Record, locate those dates, and see what sort of things were debated in Congress. The big 3 legislative history sources: congressional reports, conference committee reports, and then the Congressional Record, the congressional debates as the bill is being debated in Congress. Here's a little summation of what the congressional reports are. They're written to accompany a bill as it moves to consideration on the floor of the House or Senate. And here's an example of a citation: HR Rep, House of Representatives Report number 97-8, 97th Congress, and then 8 is the report number. A lot of times, if you go to a government website and plug in this citation, you might be able to find it. So those citations are important to glean. Conference committee report. So if it's a more contentious piece of legislation and there's a lot of different viewpoints, the House version of the bill might be considerably different than the Senate version of the bill. So they're going to take it to a conference committee where the 2 sides will combine together and hash out the difference. So that's where the conference committee report plays in. If you're looking for legislative intent, committee reports are often considered the most important source for gleaning legislative intent behind the proposal of the law, because you've got so many different authors and people taking part in the discussion and debate. All of those viewpoints might be reflected in the conference committee report. And then right here's an example of a citation: House of Representatives Conference Report number 97th Congress, the 8th report. Congressional Record. Transcripts of the floor debates are the main thing that are going on in the Congressional Record. You'll get the votes on the bills. You'll get prints of the proposed amendments included. Oftentimes the conference reports that accompany the bill will be published in the Congressional Record, as well as messages from the president. Executive orders will be found in the Congressional Record, etc. And then the final version of the bill usually appears in the Congressional Record as well. So having said all of that about all of the different things about legislative history, it's not rocket science, but it's time consuming, a lot of things to think about, a lot of things that you might need to find. So step 1, see if there's a compiled legislative history on the piece of legislation you're interested in. The most well-known, oldest standing is likely this book that's called Sources of Compiled Legislative History. It's been around for decades. We have it in print in the library, and it's also in electronic format in Hein Online. Hein Online also in the U.S. Legislative History database. In addition to this publication there, they have a database of a variety of pieces of legislation that someone's created a compiled legislative history where they list the citation to all of the different documents associated with. Plus the Legislative History Index is available on Hein Online, so you might be able to plug in your statute citation and see what you can find. More old school, the United States Code and Congressional Administrative News USCAN. So if you walk into a library with a federal collection, you might find USCAN on the shelves. So if you've got a public law number, go to that year of USCAN. USCAN will have the final version of the law that was passed. And if it's an important enough piece of legislation, they will also have the accompanying House or Senate report. So that would be in print in UScan, or also it's available on Westlaw. A lot of times different publishers or the government printing office, they might have created a compiled legislative history for a piece of legislation. So check your library catalog. Search on legislative history and the name of the law. There might be a bound legislative history of a particular law that's right there in your library that you can pull off the shelves. And then finally, Lexis and Westlaw, they have their own bits and pieces of legislative history available on their databases. Westlaw has a bit more because they've scanned and uploaded the Arnold and Porter collection of legislative history. Arnold and Porter was an old time a Washington, D.C. lobbyist and law firm, and they had hundreds of different legislative histories that they'd compiled themselves. So all of that's available on Westlaw. So now, where do you go to find all of this information? All these different documents, reports, congressional records, etc. Here are the 5 main databases and resources that I would offer up to you. The first two are federal government websites, govinfo.gov and congress.gov. Congressional record can be found scanned back to 1873 on govinfo.gov. So if you've searched on a piece of legislation, found a congressional record citation, you can take that citation, go to GovInfo and find it. Congress.gov, same way, website maintained by Congress. They'll have a lot of these documents uploaded as well. Our Hein online database that the library subscribes to. I've already mentioned the Federal Legislative History Database. Also, the Congressional Serial Set is a centuries-old collection of House and Senate reports associated with pieces of legislation that have been passed into law. So the Congressional Serial Set. Some of your bigger libraries will have this all digitized. So if you can pull a Congressional Serial Set citation, you can find a lot of information that way. And there's a big chunk of the Congressional Serial Set also available on Hein Online. So log into Hein Online, find the Congressional Serial Set. In the search bar, type in your piece of legislation, the name of the law, and see what comes up. You might be able to find a lot of stuff that way as well. So GovInfo, Congress.gov, Hein Online, the Congressional Serial Set, and then Lexis and Westlaw. Practice tip. I find this helpful as well. If you can find a case that cites legislative history in their opinion, they'll have the citation to the documents, the legislative history documents, or maybe even it's already uploaded in the database. You just click on it and you view it. So by way of example, the Pennhurst State School case dealing with the Bill of Rights for the developmentally disabled, and they were tasked with considering the constitutionality of such a thing back in 1981. And in the opinion, they actually looked into the legislative intent behind the law as they were drafting their opinion. So here's the Pennhurst opinion on Westlaw. You can see they're right in the opinion. They've cited to a House of Representatives conference report. That's linked so you can get at it right there in Westlaw. They've also cited to the congressional record and some things that Senator Javits was saying. But there's no linkage to the congressional record or anything like that, so you'd have to do a little legwork on your own. So in the Pennhurst opinion, they cite to Javis stating Title II of this bill reaffirms the basic human and civil rights of all citizens. And then they give the site to the congressional record. Volume 121, page 1600, 519, 1975 is the year. So govinfo.gov. If I'm looking for congressional record, click on A to Z, scroll down to congressional record, bound, back to 1873 up to 2016. So I'm looking for volume 121, 1975. So I scroll down to volume 121. And here, parts 1 through parts, a bunch of parts, part 28, on and on and on. So there's no page numbers here. So I'd click on details. In the details link, it'll tell you the page range, 25,195 to 26,644. So that way I know what pages I'm looking at. So I might have to do a bit of clicking here, part 13 on details. 17,481 to 18,940. That's part 14, I'm sorry. So part 13, page 16,237 to 17,004. So I know that that's within my page range I'm looking for. I would click on download. It would download it. Here it is. In page 1659. Down here, Javits is saying all this stuff, and he says, Congress shall reaffirm its belief in equal rights for all citizens. So there's the congressional record entry of what the Pennhurst case was citing to. An example of federal legislative history document using a public law number. So back to our section 7407 of air quality control. And I go down to the credits. If I'm looking for the most current law that impacted section 7407, I would go to 104 statutes at large, 2399. Here's the public law number, 108-199. So again, back to govinfo.gov. From govinfo.gov, I could have just plugged PL 108-199 in the search bar, and this page would have come up. And under related documents, versions of the bill are there. Bill history is there. Congressional reports are there. So House Report 108-193, and then there's also House Report number 108-401. Now, they don't have the full text availability of this on govinfo.gov. So this is where you might try the Hein Online database, the CIS Congressional Research Index links, or you also might see, if you can get lucky, on Westlaw. So if I copy and paste House Report number, Control copy, and I go into Lexis, law school.westlaw, go into Twin. I paste that in, might get lucky. And actually I did. House Report 108-193 is available on Westlaw. Here's my date, July 9, 2003. I would, if I couldn't find it on the Westlaw, I might see if it's in the congressional record on GovInfo. Somewhere around July 9, 2003 in the congressional record, I might get lucky and it's published in the congressional record. So that's finding some of the different documents associated with Public Law 108-199 as I'm researching the different amendments on this air quality control statute. So closing things out, let's switch over to Pennsylvania legislative history. To find a legislative history in Pennsylvania, unfortunately, there's usually not much that you're going to find attached to a bill in Pennsylvania, but you can try. You need to find the act number, find the bill number. On the Legislative Assembly's website, you'll find that, all that information here at that link. From the laws of Pennsylvania, you're going to find the bill number, usually in the top left of the act. If it's before 1980, you'll need to go to the index in the legislative journals. It's a little more complex process if it's older than 1980. Once you found the bill number of a piece of legislation in Pennsylvania, you'll locate the bill history. You'll find the bill history in the House or Senate histories, which leads you to pages in the House or Senate journals. And then here are some links to the House and Senate journals, scanned back to 1935 and 1949 respectively. Pre-1975, you're going to be doing all of this research and converting in print, doing it longhand. After 1975, just go to the Pennsylvania General Assembly website and find your bill number and find the history right there. So, example of tracing a Pennsylvania legislative history. So if I wanted to find the legislative history of 75, Title 75, Pennsylvania Consolidated Statute, Section 3806. At the end of 3806 will be the history, will be the history of the legislation, where they track all the different laws that have impacted this section. So you've got one law, November 2004, 2014, 2016. So three different laws have gone into the current state of Section 3806. It was first enacted in 2004. That's Pamphlet Law 1369, Act number 177. So you would go, if you're looking at it in print, you go Laws of Pennsylvania, year 2004, and then find Act number 177, or this is the page number. Go to page 1369 of the 2004 laws. So if I was finding the legislative history on this using the General Assembly website, I would go to legislation. I would go down to legislation enacted. If I want to look at the first law, the 2004 version, 2004 Acts of General Legislation, click search. And here are all my acts from 1 through whatever. So it was Act number 177. I would go down to 177. If I clicked on the act number, there's the language. Or if I clicked on the bill number, here's where I get it in my history. Here are the different versions of Senate Bill 133. I can click on that, read the changes in the text. If I wanted Or if I'm looking at House or Senate debates, journals, I would click on history. And I will see that here are all of the different steps in the legislative process that the Senate bill took, referred to the Judiciary Committee, then referred to Appropriations Committee. And then I'm looking for remarks in the Senate Journal. So any remarks in the Senate or House Journal, that's about the only legislative history I'm going to be able to find in Pennsylvania. So here's Senate Bill 133, and here's the president, the Senate president talking a bit about it. So that is legislative history in Pennsylvania from the General Assembly's website. So just remember that, the General Assembly's website. So I think that's it. If you're still confused, I've listed here some how-to legislative resources that I find helpful for federal legislative history. The Library of Congress and the Law Library Society of the District of Columbia have created a couple of LibGuides. And then for Pennsylvania, the Jenkins Law Library, and then myself, I've created a compiling a Pennsylvania legislative history LibGuide that might be of use. So you could click on those links at your own leisure, and maybe you'll find out all you need to know about legislative history. So wrapping it up, again, if you've got any questions about this or anything, here's my email address, bljohnson@widener.edu. Looking forward to talking to you guys. Thanks a lot for paying attention.